Karen, you look like,
ladies.
I'm gonna say what I said. You look like a lamb that just jumped over that fence there.
No, listen, I want to be outside in a meadow, jumping a fence, not scared of fucking fantasy back here.
Believe me, I totally agree with you. I could not agree with you more. How are y'all doing? Kendall, I know you just got some groceries delivered.
I did. I got some Rona groceries delivered.
Yes. Took a week.
My mom, for a while, I went ham. My mom hit me up last week saying she was feeling generous and she wanted to buy me some groceries, so I really went for it.
I love that.
Yes.
I love that.
I hope it's a month's
think
worth.
that the Duggar family lives in my apartment, but
the delivery guy was like, "It's just you?"
Yeah, he's like, why am I delivering a keg of beer right now?
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad we're able to do another episode of the Hoops Talk. I gotta say, like, the fact that we're all healthy for the most part, and we are keeping our shit together and trying to crank out these episodes.
For sure.
I'm really happy. And also the fact that people are still interested in joining us.
Yeah.
To talk on our, podcasts. I mean, it's kind of like a safe space for me in a lot of ways.
I agree. And stability, because it's like, oh, it's been a week.
Right?
For real.
It's Wednesday, I gotta upload the video.
I know. I feel like our tasks, like it reminds me. I'm like, oh, okay, today's that day, and I got to do this day. So you're to your point, Karen. It's so true. Keeping that together. How else is everyone doing? You doing okay, Karen? You're up there in the San Francisco.
Yeah, in the Bay Area. It's nice and sunny today. We had some shitty weather, which I heard you guys had some rain all week last week. But people they're turning nuts on each other. And I'm like, can we turn nuts on the president? We don't need to do that to each other. We might, I was at the post office in the parking lot. It was nuts. People were honking at me, getting crazy, trying to cut, SUV trying to cut in between me and a parked car. I was like, what is the rush?
God. Seriously, what is the rush?
Yeah, where do you gotta be?
Were you gonna run back home? Sit on your sofa?
Yeah.
I mean, I get rushing in the post office and be like, I don't want to be here, and then drop it off and then run out. But you're in the comfort of your car.
Yeah.
Seriously. Has everybody bought masks, by the way? Have you guys all got masks?
I have some cute ones.
Oh. Yeah, we bought some just like regular black masks. We don't have like anything.
Oh, smart.
Oh, Kendall's got her packet of masks.
I went Etsy for all the designs. Yes.
Nice.
I'm just going to color on mine.
Oh, I like that. I'm going
to write
some hoop stock stickers on that sucker.
Did you see that woman that bought she bought a face mask with little penises?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And if you can see the penises, you're too close.
Yeah.
Those are so smart.
I feel like that's my life motto. If I could see penis, I'm too close.
It's a good motto.
That's, I think, my life motto.
Yep. It's a good one now.
Well, on that note, I'm gonna go into some our normal house cleaning updates. Unless you guys have anything else you want to talk about, let's just roll into this.
Roll on in.
Roll on in. Again, thanks for listening to the Hoops Talk. Please subscribe or like and review on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcast. I listen to one on Overcast FM. I know some people like Pandora. We're there as well. iHeartRadio. Anywhere, we're RSS, so please check us out. You can also see our episodes on YouTube, because we have a YouTube channel now, so we're putting them out there.
Subscribe, you get alerts for every new episode.
And Karen was jumped into the chats, so she was chatting with some people in there, and she was live tweeting as early as Wednesdays. We're trying all different things.
Yes.
So get in there. We're there. And then, as always, you can follow us on Instagram and on Twitter at The Hoops Talking and TikTok. So we have that TikTok.
Hey, what's the update on our intern, man? Is he still?
Yeah. He's still grounded.
Intern, if you didn't see on my story, on the Hoops Talk stories, he had his phone privileges taken away because he wasn't doing his homework.
This fool.
I know. So we had one day with no new talks because he was on lockdown. Although I did happen to mention to his momager, well, he's being homeschooled. So doesn't that mean you're his teacher? So
you are not
really to blame. Which immediately got a very cold stare.
Oh, for sure.
From her to me.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
But with that said,
pull him out. She's gonna take him away.
You gotta be careful. Sister might just be like, nah, no more internship.
No. Oh, that'd be the worst thing for us. So he is back on. He has some new videos. He's getting us, some followers, some likes. Go there, check us out. They're pretty hilarious. I like them. I think they're fun.
Yeah.
I'll post a few on Instagram for you to check out, but please
he's
go.
Definitely keeping up with trends, I'm just like,
keeping up on trends. I mean, he's 13. 13.
He better be up.
Picking up on chicks.
Seriously. Come on. So it's perfect. So go check us out there. And then Karen, is there any updates on Prize Pack?
Listen, everything on Amazon is delayed a month and a half. It's non-essential. It's a pause.
Wait, so vibrators are non-essential?
Yeah, no, they're not.
Okay, good to know. So
I know, it's a bummer.
Right now, no non-essentials on the Prize Pack. All right. Just want to make sure we keep that updated. One day, guys. Although we do have a new review. We do have a new review.
Oh.
Yeah.
Which getting the Prize Pack once ready.
Yeah. Someone's really excited to potentially get that Prize Pack. So yes, there is a review up. Someone reviewed, so go check it out. Your review does not have to be Shakespearean in nature.
Oh no, keep it short and sweet.
Yeah, I like this. Take a listen. Thumbs up. I mean, seriously.
That's all we need.
Doesn't need to be your Tinder profile. It'd be very low key.
Doesn't have to be a clever Twitter bio.
Not at all. Not at all. So that's our updates. I mean, we're keeping this short and sweet because we have a wonderful guest that's going to join us up next for our Women Crush Wednesday segment. Her name is Emalee Nelson. And she is a PhD student at the University of Hawaii, and she's going to share with us her dissertation on the Cuban women who were in the All-American girls baseball team, plus some other fun facts because she's a student of sports and of women's history. So we're going to bring her on. Super excited to have her. So we're just going to keep rolling. Unless you guys have any other updates, but I think we covered it.
Yeah, no, we did.
Rolling with the homies.
Rolling with the homies.
All right, she's coming up next.
Woo!
Hi, welcome Emalee Nelson to the podcast. How are you doing?
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited.
Absolutely. Thank you for, I know it was through a friend that we were able to connect with you from the social club that I actually put out a call to people that love sports to come on to the podcast. So I'm so glad we were able to connect that way.
Yeah, me too.
Excellent. So, okay, Emalee, you and I talked previous, and I know you're a PhD student at the University of Hawaii.
Yes.
And can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I know right now you're working at Texas A&M. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
So would love to know a little bit kind of your origin story about how you, because I know you're a sports lover. How did you become, a sports lover? How did you decide to focus on sports and U.S. women's history? And what led you to your dissertation, which we'll be talking about in a little bit?
Yeah, so I grew up in like a pretty sporty family. My dad played football in college, had a small stint in the NFL. So just grew up around sports. My mom was my soccer coach when I was like 4. And so I was definitely one of those kids that was like, what season is it? We're playing a different sport. Just grew up loving sports. Obviously, ESPN was always on in the background in my entire childhood, and honestly still is. And so I grew up loving sports, and then unfortunately in high school, I blew out both of my knees less than a year apart from each other. So I had a pretty traumatic exit from sports when I was banking on going, to school with scholarship to play basketball and such. And so I kind of had this really ugly exit and something that I'd loved for so long.
Right. Okay. Can you tell us about the accident, or is it too painful to?
Oh, no. It was actually when I was a sophomore in high school. And I had before this, the worst injury that I ever had was a bad paper cut and maybe a rolled ankle and So I was not an injury prone kid at all. And it was we're a few games away from state, and not my roommate, but my point guard on the team, I was playing a 3-4 kind of transition. She steals the ball, and of course our whole team takes off down the court. And mind you, on the court right now we're 4 girls who went on to be all state track and field. And me, the discus thrower, I was the first one down the court. And I just point guard Brianna, she beautifully lobbed it in to I caught it in my hand, and I had the whole lane open. I was like, well, I'm very right-handed, so obviously I'm going to shoot a right-handed layup. So I just went up to the right side and went up, and this girl came behind me, and her knee hit my knee so hard in the middle of the air, my blew out ACL, MCL, medial lateral meniscus, everything in the air. And then I did this barrel roll into the cheerleaders.
Oh my God.
It was horrible. I'm 16 years old, and it's districts, and our guys team is playing right after us, small town Missouri. And so my high school principal was there, my math teacher was there, everyone in our entire school was there. And I'm sobbing, of course. So
of course.
Yeah, basically, and then I did rehab, everything, all that fun stuff. Well, actually not fun stuff at all. And then came back for the next season, and then I was in this meaningless non-conference game, went up for a rebound, came down, landed on a girl's shoe, and then my other knee, and I just was doo, 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 doo. I felt every single ligament tear one at a time. I just kind of sat down, had the ball, I got the rebound, so and on the other one, I made the shot. So I got an and one, and my friend shot my free throw for me as I'm hobbling off until that. So yeah, so it was pretty, and then it was just pretty ugly from there. And of course, when you're a junior, and that's when everyone starts calling, and of course, then everyone was oh, sorry about this. And so yeah, so kind of going into college, I had all these hopes for, becoming a Division I athlete, and then literally within seconds, it kind of gets taken from you. So I went to study geography and French in college. I went to the University of Missouri for a year and a half, transferred, went to Texas Tech. My family lives in Texas, and had a girl, get your guns out.
Oh, baby.
Yeah. And so I went to Texas Tech, and then my advisor, and so I had ACL surgeries obviously in high school, and then the ACL that they put in, my body rejected it. So I have 2 more ACL surgeries to go in and fix. It was a pretty ordeal for a while.
I'm surprised you would still want to be in sports. I would run anything sports.
Yeah. So then this whole thing happens. And so I'm hobbling into my advisor's office, and she's like, well, you need an upper level writing intensive elective. And I was like, okay, well, what do you suggest? And she said, well, there's a history of sports and recreation in the United States class. It's an upper level, it's a junior level class. It'll fit your requirements. So I know you like sports, so maybe this would be something you're interested in. I was like, all right, let's sign up for it. So I go into class, and this is the next semester, another ACL surgery. I'm not kidding you. It was pretty hobbling into class on my crutches, big old brace. It's this lecture class of 60 people. and there's like 4 girls in there, and I sit down and I'm hooked. It's the most exciting class. And it was just something like, honestly, like we said, you know, you're like, I'm surprised you like didn't like hate sports. And for a long time, like I kind of did. And I couldn't go to like a female, like, or women's like basketball game. Because especially like when I was at Mizzou, when I was at Texas Tech, it was so hard to watch because I was like, I know I'm better than them. Like,
right.
You know, like my body literally can't even carry me up and down the court anymore. So it was hard to watch. And so then I started taking this class, and we started from like Puritan era to present day on just kind of talking about how sports and competition and professionalized sports and stuff became this entity, this enterprise that we see today.
Wow.
And then I realized like sports was such a huge part of my life, but me, like a single athlete, I'm a part of something much, much bigger. And that's kind of like, I learned to kind of fall in love with sports again. And in a way that honestly would sustain a career way longer than any professional athlete ever has. So this is something that I've decided to, you know, to make into, like I said, like a career in writing and reading about sports is honestly the best therapy that I could have had. So here we are.
That's amazing.
Nice. Yeah.
It's so amazing. And do you find, you know, because you do have, you know, you are someone who, I mean, I wish I could do it as well, but you've been so entrenched in the history, right? So you've gone, like you said, from Puritan times to now, and you're seeing the evolution based on history. What are you seeing, or could you even maybe, if you had a crystal ball, based on what's happening now with COVID in sports and the league stopping, and what are you seeing? Do you think, I just read a piece about how this you know, coronavirus could actually be detrimental to the gains that women's sports has made. How do you feel about that? Or what are your thoughts on how this pandemic is going to shape potentially sports, or for good or bad, or from what you've seen in history? Do you have any idea on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the biggest thing that I think everyone is realizing is how much money that we have invested into sports. Not just like obviously in the contracts of these athletes who are getting paid, you know, crazy amounts, which just is like, relatively speaking, a very recent thing. I mean, if you look at baseball players in like the 60s or the 70s is when their contracts really blew up. But before then, professional athletes used to make like what a dentist or maybe like a doctor would make, which is like, you know, you'd be comfortable, but it's nothing like these mega salaries that we see today. And so not only just like I said, contracts of these athletes, but also the journalists. I mean, I think I saw like so many journalists for like even Sports Illustrated, tenured journalists who have been there for so long are now being laid off or furloughed, or if they're lucky.
Right.
And so I think people are realizing the amount that we have just invested into sports as a staple of like our American culture, and realizing that that too is something that we have created for better, and now as we're seeing for worse.
Right.
In this time. And like you said, for female athletes and for professional women in sports, we're always unfortunately kind of on the lagging edge of what's being kind of pushed out and what's generally accepted in sports. So it's, women have, especially this past year with like, you know, like the US women's soccer team, I think they're the most, you know, I think current moment that comes to mind of all the work that they're putting in. And obviously on the field or on the pitch and off the pitch, but think about all that, you know, legal progress that they're trying to make, all that kind of is also like halted for the moment. And as we come back into sports, unfortunately, cases like that, cases like Larry Nassar and such, those are not going to be at the forefront of our conversation like they once were, because people are trying to figure out, well, how do we, you know, get back into sports? How do we have, you know, a full MLB season that's not being played just in their spring training facilities? Unfortunately, those are the conversations that are going to completely drive sports for the next couple of years. And women in sports, unfortunately, just kind of falls behind. So I think, you know, podcasts like this and just keeping that conversation going will be really important as we move forward.
Thank you. Yeah, we hope we can be a little bit important. We're not like completely being like dorks trying to figure out Zoom. Have you Have you, I'm wondering too, and thinking about the history of sports, have you seen anything as great as what this pandemic has done in, like, has there been another moment in the past? Either it could be like, it could be super niche where maybe a sport started, like highlight. Highlight is one of those sports that like some rich person wanted to have it happen, and they poured all this money, and I don't believe it exists, or at least I don't know of it existing, but has there been sports or moments in sports that you could say like have had this kind of misfortune when it was starting? Or
Yeah, that's a great question, because I think for at least everyone's like, oh, this is such an unprecedented moment, which it definitely is, because where everything I think just stops so quickly. But in regards to sports stopping, I mean, like Wimbledon right now was canceled for the first time since like World War II or something like that. And every like single update that I get, it's like, well, this hasn't been canceled since like a war, a great world war. So that's where you kind of, I think everyone is like kind of forcing to step back and be like, whoa, like this is pretty big. And especially because even like 3 weeks ago it didn't start 3 weeks ago, but when everything started getting canceled, like when the NCAA was like, oh, we're not going to play March Madness with any fans. And then within like 48 hours, it was winter and spring sports are canceled, and everything just kind of tumbled so quickly. So I think from at least like a cancel standpoint, I think this kind of shows just how unique it is, especially where it's also affecting everyone. But I think America is getting its own kind of special wake-up call, that how we really do kind of feel sometimes that we are, well, the idea of American exceptionalism is always kind of like in the spotlight as, oh, we're exceptional as in like the good kind of way, rather than, oh no, we're not, we think we're so great at doing all these things, but in reality we're, unfortunately, light years behind everywhere else, regardless of its, how we've responded to this moment, but also to kind of how we think that we're okay, we're going to be immune. Sport, oh, that can't touch us,
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see how this all kind of comes back together.
Very interesting. Yeah. So I guess in a way, it wasn't until there was a world war that we saw a moment like this. And I guess this is a good transition, because from what I understand and what I've read is that American or the girls league, the All-American Girls Baseball League, was born from the lack of men being able to play the sports or baseball because of the war. So, and that is what you are doing your dissertation on. And we'd love to hear about everything about that. I'm fascinated. I read your piece on the website that I have a link, and I'll put that link on our site for people to be able to read it. But your focus was the Cuban women who played for this league. But I'd love for you to take us through, like, how did you even find this as a topic that you wanted to do your dissertation on? And then some highlights for us that maybe is like, oh, did you know? Because I love doing did you know isms to people all the time. And take us through that journey. I think that'd be really interesting for our audience.
Yeah, absolutely. So while I was actually at Texas Tech, my thesis advisor, who not ironically, but he was the professor for my sport and recreation class that I just kind of happened to fall back into sports in a positive light. And so I ended up going back to grad school, my master's in history, and I asked if he would be my thesis advisor, and he's great, Dr. Jorge Iber, who is a Cuban immigrant himself. His parents came over really early, and after kind of the whole Castro moment happens in the late 50s and kind of in the early 60s, seeing that change in Cuba. And so he knew that I wanted to study something kind of women and baseball related, and that was pretty much it. And he said, I saw something that may interest you. You should look into this. He's like, the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League. And then, of course, I was like, yeah, it's a league of their own. I love it,
Yeah.
And he's like, well, there are actually a handful of Cuban women who played in that league, and that's pretty much all I know. You should look into it. And thus, the creation of this journey from 2016 to here we are, still going at it. But so as we were just talking about, the league was created as a kind of way to supplement Major League Baseball at the time, which did go on, but obviously a lot of the players were shipping off to the armed forces, various branches, to go fight in the war or do something to help wartime efforts.
Yes.
And an important, here's a did you know, and a lot of people are like, oh, Major League Baseball is depleted, but also too, like the farm system, because at this point there was also the minor league system.
Oh yeah.
So not only was it like the, you know, handful of men who were on each of those major league rosters, but also everyone else in the entire organization was pretty much on like wartime efforts. So it was like a really big, sports did just kind of not stop. Mm-hmm. In some cases they did, like Wimbledon, like we were just talking about. Right. But it really just was not in the forefront of people's minds. And so then Philip Wrigley, who was a chewing gum mogul, also Wrigley of Chicago Cubs, the Wrigley Field, same guy. He was like, and this is what you see in a League of Their Own too. He said, let's have women play baseball. And that's kind of like the gist of it. But in reality, obviously, it's a lot more complex and complicated. Right. But the league was created in 1943, which World War II only goes from 1939. And then obviously the United States enters in very late 1941 because of the bombing of Pearl Harbor. Right. So 1941 to 1945. So this league has always been kind of like pictured as like, oh, this is a form of World War II time entertainment, which, yeah, it is. But the league goes from 1943 to 1954. So most of the league is actually taking place after World War II, which is where my research comes in, because you can learn, and that's where I kind of argue, you can learn a lot more about the league itself when you kind of look at it as a late, like kind of post-war form of entertainment, but also kind of early Cold War years. That's leading into, obviously, the Cold War being, you know, our huge conflict with like the Soviet Union. Yeah. And as we see in a couple years beyond even the league folding, that Cuba becomes a very central part. So I think it's really interesting that in the 1947 season, they start holding spring training in Cuba, which also Major League Baseball was holding their spring training in Cuba as well. And the 1947 season is super important because that's when Jackie Robinson breaks the color barrier for the Brooklyn Dodgers. Wow. And so in that season, the Dodgers were actually holding spring training in Havana at the same time that the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League was holding spring training. And the Women's Baseball League grew larger crowds than the Brooklyn Dodgers.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Right.
A Giants fan over here.
And I mean, part of that could be that, you know, to speculate at the time, people were like, men playing baseball, we've seen that. Like, what's going on with the women? You know, I mean, maybe out of general, you know, curiosity. Sure. It's part of the way that kind of like drive those sort of, you know, numbers. But I think it's really interesting to see that, you know, the demand for, you know, people wanting to watch women play sports has been there. So I think
in your research, did you happen to see like what the makeup of the audience was that went to go see? Were like there more women in the audience, or was there any information on that?
That's a great question, and that's hopefully too what I'm hoping to kind of dive into in the archives. So hopefully, I mean, fingers crossed. I would like to really go to Cuba to go look at their national archives. And so right now it's a bit trickier to travel to Cuba. Well, It's just a bit tricky to travel in general right now. All this passage. But no, that's one of my main questions too, because it was, you know, for the first time were women also, you know, coming in mass numbers to be like, I want to see, you know, my friend play, or that could be me, you know, that kind of, you know, representation matters. That'd be interesting to see. So basically as they're going through in the 1947 season, they end up recruiting a handful of Cuban women to come play. Ultimately, 7 came to the United States, not just in that first season, but through the rest of the seasons that the league existed. And so that's where I kind of really dive in to understand, well, what was their life like? And so the Cuban women actually faced, obviously, language barriers, ordering food in restaurants and communicating with teammates. So that kind of, you know, not tension, but that issue, that barrier was definitely there. Mm-hmm. But from all the primary resources I've read, these women were like really welcomed by their teammates. They loved that they had, you know, kind of these like Cuban sisters in their league, because the league itself too was kind of this like unique anomaly at the time, that these women like really formed this kind of sisterhood because of just the unique nature that they didn't know how long this league was going to last. So they just, tried to make the most of every moment. And so the women also stayed in the houses, like of the teams that or the cities that they lived in. So a lot of the teams were based kind of in the Midwest, like South Bend, Indiana, and like Wisconsin and Illinois. And so they lived in sometimes would do a stay at home kind of situation, and they were always welcomed in the homes. And so I thought that was really interesting, because at the time, Major League Baseball, there was still a definite tension between anyone who was not of Anglo heritage.
Yep.
So basically, and so if, even people who light skinned, Latinos who are trying to play in Major League Baseball, some of them, even the fans, their teammates would be really skeptical. If they talked in Spanish, in the dugout, their teammates would be things like this still exist too, unfortunately. Sure. Just speak English, so they really didn't embrace that kind of racial, diversity that the women did. And so I always thought that was kind of interesting. And so the more I kind of looked into it, and I looked at these images, there's a handful of images that you can find on the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League, their website. And also too, in the Baseball Hall of Fame, they have a really great digital archive as well. So these women who were coming over from Cuba, they were all light-skinned. And so if you look at a more kind of in-depth history of Cuba, obviously just unfortunately within especially the southern and eastern parts of the United States, they have a very, very in-depth history of slavery as well. And so if your ancestors definitely were from that slave trade, you have darker skin just because genetics basics. But if you had more of that Spanish ancestry, then of course you'd have lighter skin. And so the same thing happened for Major League Baseball, that if you were to come up from these Cuban leagues, you had to be of light skinned origin. Wow. And so that's what my dissertation really kind of gets into, is that, within this moment, that these kind of racial barriers that are existing, we kind of take a second look and realize it's actually an issue of color. And so the first dark-skinned Latino, or Cuban, specifically Cuban, player was Minnie Minoso, who played for the White Sox. And he didn't come into Major League Baseball until after Jackie Robinson had broken the color barrier. Wow. And so there really was no official writing. There was no official rule that said that that Black men couldn't play in Major League Baseball. It was just always the gentleman's agreement that had been in place long before, in the 1800s. And so the same thing kind of existed for women in the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League. And so in there, they had this charm school guide, because, as you see in the movie too, they had to wear skirts and they had to wear a full face of makeup that was required by them. Wow. And so I don't know if any of you played softball, but obviously you can't even wear shorts.
Even the gym, there's girls who wear makeup and you're like,
oh, yeah.
No,
so
it's terrible.
And so sliding, I was I had in seventh grade I played softball, and I had a strawberry raspberry. I feel every team called it something different. It lasted for 3 years. It was a mark on my skin. So that idea of the league owners, basically men, were telling the women how to dress, what to look like, how to express this sort of femininity, was pretty much just as unspoken, or it was very explicit, but also the color of your skin was a bit more hidden, but just so apparent and very much driving this image that the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League is trying to emulate. And as I say this in a kind of a very critical lens. Yeah. And I try not to take, and I don't want to ever take away from the accomplishments that these incredible women, they were professional athletes, decades before Title IX was implemented. But as we look back and we kind of see that, these very much existing racial barriers, that, the Jim Crow laws are still very much affecting these southern states at this time. And how women are, during World War II get all this economic opportunity, and then afterwards they're kind of well, no, let's actually keep you in this nice, beautiful domestic role, and do not challenge that, because we don't want you looking like, long Soviet communist women who are a bit more butch. I mean, that's basically kind of how it was. And so that's where it's kind of this really complex way of of understanding femininity, economic opportunity of women, but also kind of these racial barriers, and how these Cuban women were really were kind of like writing so many lines so quickly,
Wow.
so intricately. So that's pretty much what it's looking at. So it'll be interesting to see kind of as I do more research as well, and hopefully get to know more of the players, and hopefully hold some interviews and such to see.
Well, I mean, like, to your point, it sounds like these women have so many layers to them just wanting to play a sport that they want to play. You know, it's like, you don't have to, I mean, I don't know, in modern days, for the most part, if you do have the access and the ability, you just go out and do it. Whereas these women were having to ride a lot of those social narratives that were placed upon them, not only from a men's perspective, but from the, you know, as females, but also to your point, the racial perspective, as far as like how their skin color or their tone, you know, how light they were. And I know, I don't know if in your findings there is what is called the brown bag test, where you put a brown paper bag to your face, and you have to be lighter than that brown paper bag to be considered, you know, of the fairer or better skin tone. That's something that I have found out through art history in studying some of the Latinx cultures, and the artwork that's coming out of there, that's been very prevalent. But as you're unpacking more of these, what these women went through, has there been a particular player or a particular story of one of these players, or collectively, where you've just been like, this is an incredible, I mean, besides, you know, I know they have a lot of things that they have to come up against, but has there been any like one or two stories where you're like, holy shit, this is like out of control?
That's so, yeah, it's interesting because I think the name that came up the most was Isabel Alvarez, and I guess you could say she was the most kind of quote prolific player that came. I mean, obviously they weren't making a ton of money, so it's not prolific in our terms. But she stayed the longest. She kind of had the best, you know, batting average and all that fun stuff. And so she ended up playing for the team in South Bend, and she stayed there after her the league folded, which I think was really interesting. And so I found like a primary source that she had like about like a few seasons in, or even in her first season, she got kind of homesick, and she wrote to her mom, and her mom was like, I'm pretty much like generalizing this conversation very much. Her mom was like, no, stay, like keep doing what you're doing, like it's great. And that's where I kind of want to, I think that alone has many layers that I kind of want to peel back on, because her mom's, you know, still in Cuba at this time. And what is she experiencing that she's like, you know, it's stay in America.
Right.
You know, it's the fan here. So, you know, it'd be interesting to kind of see like what kind of more of that story and unpack that. And then she became an American citizen, and she still lives in South Bend today. So
is she still alive?
Oh my God.
She's still around?
Yeah.
Oh.
She's actually in A League of Their Own when they do one of those shots at the beginning, because you know how it's kind of like their reunion, and then basically like 98% of the movie is like a flashback, and you can see her, she herself, but you can see her getting off the bus, and there's like a very clear shot of her face, so that's really cool.
Oh, wow.
And then there's another story, I can't even remember her name, because and this was in my research I did a few years ago, and I need to go back look at my notes, but she recorded one at bat, and then that was it, and she went home, went back to Cuba. She was so homesick.
That was it.
They were like women in their, you know, they're teenagers, honestly, at this point. They were, you know, in their 20s or like, you know. So I think that also too, their age that they're coming to the United States says something about maybe what their parents are experiencing. And this is during like the Bautista era. I mean, there really is no like shining moment of Cuba's history to say that like these are the golden years. And here we are, American exceptionalism again. We have, you know, inflicted a lot of that upon Cuba, and I recognize that for sure. yeah, so it's interesting that these parents, you know, what their family ties were enough to be like, yes, go play baseball, and I don't know if I'll see you again. But so that, I think, is an interesting story too.
Right.
And then obviously, if these women were, well, baseball has always been very popular in Cuba and just the Caribbean in general, because you can play it all year round.
Yeah.
But how these women were good enough to come play in the United States. So what kind of leagues were there for women in Cuba, like in the 40s, also in the 30s? What was, you know, life like for these female athletes? So that's also too what my research hopefully can like kind of dive in on and talk about too. So it's unfortunate though, because of Cuba, it's hard to access anything that's from that country, including archives of course, archives of the past of women. That's not going to be the most like generous search on Google. So or anything in general Cuba related. So there are definitely some hurdles that are harder to overcome when, you know, studying something like Cuba in this situation. So but yeah, so each of the stories are kind of unique. There's like you can go on the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League, their website, and you can find team photos from each of the years. And there was like one photo from like 1949, I think, that like the two of the Cuban women, they were like standing next to each other in the team photo, which I thought was like so sweet, because they're probably just pals that if, you know, anytime they were on the same team or their like teams played each other, it was like, oh, I can, you know, speak Spanish. Like I can, you know, it's just someone who could understand that unique story and that unique journey that they've been on, which that alone is like such an incredible story. That could be a
on
book itself.
For real.
I mean, that's so true.
Yeah, and even you just talking, I have so many questions like, you know, have you been to Cuba or plan to, you know, post Rona, right, to continue, you know, pulling archives, even talking to folks or their families, because they may have that information. And then I think something else that came in my head is like, what if there were Cuban women who are morena and dark and tried, but they were excluded from coming? And also, did these women, these teens, right, that they send money back home? Were they kind of maybe even the primary caretakers because they were making American money versus what their family was making?
Right. Yeah, these are all great questions, which I definitely am like very eager to dive into. The first one being, I think that was one of the first questions I had when I did my research, was how many, you know, dark-skinned Cuban women who were hell of an athlete were like, let me play. And here, you know, our, you know, Philip Wrigley and company is like, great arm, but not for you. And like, you know, or were they just like straight up way more harsh about it? And it's like, nope, sorry, wrong shade, can't be here, you know, like, and that's a really important like question to see, like, kind of, you know, because it said like, just like Major League Baseball, this unspoken gentleman's agreement that was definitely very spoken, but, you know, never officially written down. The same thing existed for you know, women in the league, and Black women did try out for the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League, and managers told them like, sorry, don't have enough space. Like Toni Stone, who played in the Negro Leagues. There's like 3 women who played in the Negro Leagues. Toni Stone replaced Hank Aaron at first base before he went and played Major League Baseball, who obviously, you know, went on to become like the home run king. And I was like, they turned her down. Went on to, like, you know, fill in for Hank Aaron. I was like, that's bullshit. So like, obviously, like, the talent was there, but just these rules were just so, quote, air quote, rules, you know, were still in place. So I think that's a great question too, that I really want to find out, like, and that's, I think, if I peel back and try and find more on these leagues or any sport, you know, entity, whether it was like a league or a team or anything that existed for these women in Cuba, I want to find like a team photo of something to see if it was much more diverse than what, you know, we see within the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League. But yeah, that's a great, it's so interesting. So to see, because Isabel Alvarez, in that same interview, she was like, I played tennis, I played like a few soccer, a few other sports and stuff. I was like, well, obviously, I mean, tennis is, you know, is pretty much like, has this, you know, it's a kind of elite sport that's always kind of been the upper class sport here in the United States and just in general. So if she was playing tennis in Cuba, that she maybe came from, you know, a family that had a little bit more. And so, and does that also probably allude to, you know, that she was lighter skin tone, and that she did have the chance to play in the league here in the United States. So I have so many questions too.
I know.
I'll do a follow-up.
Oh yeah, please. You got to come back when you dig some.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah, seriously. That's why, I mean, when we first connected, I was so fascinated by just the whole, idea of like these women playing, well, first off, just women playing baseball in that time, because I do love A League of Their Own. Is like one of my favorite movies of women in sports, even though it's probably highly fictionalized, a lot of the stuff in there. And then to know more about Cuban women's role because of those multitudes of race and class and just everything. Because I mean, I'm Mexican American, I'm first generation, and my family, it's like to think like, I don't think my mom would be like, yeah, go ahead, head over to another country and at 16,
play a sport.
Play a sport. I don't know. I don't know. Well, maybe, but like she was born in Mexico, but she had her formative years here in high school. So she is more of an American culture, right? That would possibly, I had more access and more opportunity, as we all do. And she was given more opportunity and access to say like, hey, my daughter doesn't have to go straight into a marriage at 16. She can go to college and she can have these things. So these women from, a culture that, has the quinceañera, no, I don't know if they have quinceañeras, but have those, those types of like, hey, you get married as soon as you can, you get out there. But then for their family to kind of twist change the script and say, hey, go ahead and go to America and play baseball. That to me is like, those parents, I would love to know more about them as well.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm sure they're breaking hella norms for their children. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. Especially too, like the fact that, they, like I said, they came on later in 1947. So this is 2 years after World War II. But again, it's also 2 years after World War II.
Yeah.
America's not the most stable.
Yeah, and unsupervised flying over here.
Yeah.
It's so interesting, especially too. I mean, obviously, on hindsight, we can look back and say, well, things are about to get a little rough for Cuba and the United States in the years to come, but not, just the blind faith of knowing. And I think that's also the beauty of, the idea of the American dream that obviously, isn't fully extended to everyone by any means, but the fact that these, I think that says, like I said, something about the moment that Cuba was in, that they were like, well, it's a little rough, but it could be rougher here than it could be there. So give it a shot. And, go play baseball and see what happens. And so I think, you talking to the parents to see, because the most they probably knew of baseball too, as well, was obviously the best professional leagues were in the United States, but the Cuban leagues were very, very popular as well. And so if, this family knew that baseball was a great way for, was a healthy outlet of energy. And so here's, you can get paid to do it. It's, again, so many questions.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. Well, I'm so excited that we got to dig into this. I know what we're going through in sports right now is crazy, but there's still so much that hasn't been talked about and can be talked about, that I hope that we can kind of use our podcast to bring some of those narratives a place for discussion. So I'm super excited that we got a hold of you and we're able to talk to you about it. Before we wrap, is there anything that you would like to go and look at or read, or a link or anything you want us to check out or have our audience check out?
Let's see. I have a website. It's Emalee30.wixsite.com/Nelson. Also, you can follow me on Instagram or Twitter at Emalee Nelson. So it's the same in the link that you posted today on the Instagram page. So anyone can reach out because I just love talking about anything sports related. So no, this is.
Well, you definitely have to come back.
Oh, absolutely. I would be honored.
Yeah, no, we will. I mean, it's good to know because, you know, if we can get you to like come back and talk about some of the facts that you know and give us some more, like maybe do some trivia for I don't know.
Fun.
We can be fun too, okay? So yeah, we would love to have you back and let us know how it's progressing, you know, as you're starting to, you know, if you come across some cool stuff that you want to update us on, we'd love to hear how it's progressing because I'm thinking there's a book and some movies.
And a movie for sure.
Yeah, a movie for sure.
Yeah. My mom tells me that, so I'm glad to know that there's other people who think that besides my mom.
100%.
I would watch it in a
definitely.
In a heartbeat. I'm buying tickets.
Definitely.
Pre-ordering it. So thank you, Emalee, so much for coming on to the podcast and reaching out. And let's definitely be in touch. I just can't tell you how exciting it was to have you. And this is an amazing topic. And we wish you all the luck and hope that you get farther and farther and more information about this.
Perfect. Sure. Well, thank y'all so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks, Emalee.
Hopefully we can talk soon.
Of course.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Wow. Wow.
Crazy. I know.
That was crazy.
Mm-hmm. I mean, just digging into the link that you had sent us prior, man.
I know.
There's some juice.
And she was, when I had our pre-call prior to the podcast, she was telling me all these things that she knows about women in sports and U.S. history. I was just like, whoa.
I like this whole trivia quiz thing or like, yeah, we should have like a tournament.
I mean,
brackets.
Could be a whole new prize pack that comes.
Oh, man.
Oh.
A walk-on role on the film. 10 years.
You can be our background in one of our
extras. You can be. You want to sit right here?
Yeah, you can sit like behind here, put your picture
so funny.
or something.
You can be Stanley for a day right
Yeah,
here.
right there. Blurred out.
We'll Photoshop you in like the office background or the field with Karen. Like it.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that she reached out and came on, and that was good. That was it. That was our Women Crush Wednesday for this episode. I think we're ready to move on, but thank you, Emalee Nelson. We'll put all the links up on our notes and all that good stuff. So, but on to the next segment. All right, ladies.
Dance break.
Right? That was a good dance break. Gotta fix my bangs up a little bit. Get it going. Kendall, you are having tech difficulties.
Yes.
I know it, man. I keep going out. I keep freezing. That's why I've got this beer, because I'm just like, I need it right now.
You know, our audiences should take a shot every time there's a Kindle glitch.
I know, right?
That's the game for this episode.
Have I made stupid faces?
Well,
have I been stuck like...
Yeah, you're all... Freeze frame.
Okay.
Well, so I have just put everything under sports in the age of the coronavirus because there's just everything kind of melding into one another at this point. The first thing I wanted to talk about is just something that you two have been involved in. I'm super excited. Is the We Keep Playing event that happened this past Saturday via what is it? The Women's Sports Foundation.
Yep, WSF.
Verizon, and was hosted on Yahoo Sports app and website. Guys, tell us a little bit more about that, because I watched it and I was blown away by the panelists. Tell us a little bit about that. Walk us through. You guys must have been like, this is crazy wonderful when it happened.
So we've been trying to build a relationship with the Women's Sports Foundation for a while now. They reached out to us a month or so ago about doing some stuff with them, and obviously now that we're all kind of quarantined, there's not a whole lot of content out there, so we're trying to make stuff happen. So basically it kind of came together really quickly, it seemed like. I don't know what you think, Carolyn. It seemed like it was like, hey, we're doing
on
this,
it like
it was
Tuesday.
like a week later it was like, okay, we're done with it, and like it was weird. But yeah, so basically Billie Jean King she started this foundation, the Women's Sports Foundation. So she was kind of the host of the event, I guess. Like, she was the one that wanted to put it on. It was technically hosted by Carrie Champion, who works at ESPN, and it had Carly Lloyd from the U.S. women's soccer team. It had Sabrina Ionescu from Oregon and possible first pick. It had Kendall Coyne from the U.S. women's hockey team, Katie Ledecky, the swimmer, Scout Bassett, runner. Who am I missing, Karen?
Shanae.
Who else do we have?
Shanae.
Oh, yeah, Shanae. We had Shanae. She was awesome on it. She brought the energy for sure.
For sure.
Katie Sowers from the coach from the Niners.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was about it. But
you guys had like Condoleezza Rice talk to.
Oh, and then Condoleezza,
and like a separate interstitial too. It was amazing.
Yeah, but yeah, it was basically them just kind of going over what they've been doing during quarantine and how to stay active and giving life to women in sports and trying to keep the momentum that we had going into 2020, women's sports had going into 2020 that kind of got stripped away from us because of all this, and just trying to keep it moving forward.
Yeah. No, I believe like Billie Jean King was saying, the foundation was really built on wanting to continue giving access to women to sports and visibility, which was like super important. And that's what, she wanted to continue to do with, the foundation and have that platform. I thought it was amazing. I followed it. I was tweeting it from the Hoops Talk Twitter, and there was a lot of great responses. It was the "We Keep Playing" was the hashtag, so you could go onto Twitter and like look at what some of the people were saying. There was a lot of really good conversation. I thought it was interesting that Shanae at one point was saying, we're at a point where we're not looking back. She was saying, when the march happened, right, when the 2016 election happened and the Women's March, she felt like that was a game changer, and that women were like, enough. We are getting together. We're collaborating.
Yes.
We're not competition against one another. We need to work together. And so she's like, everybody on this panel is, we're working together. It's not a competition amongst ourselves. And I think that was really pivotal.
That was so good.
I mean, she's right. Like, we had so much momentum. I mean, regardless of how you felt about Hillary Clinton, it was still a massive thing for us, for her to even be the nominee for the Democratic Party, right? Like, glass ceiling cracked, right? That was her whole thing at the DNC. She had that video, and at the end, the ceiling cracked, right?
Totally.
So, like, I feel like from there, we had just, like, and then we had the Me Too movement, and then we've got the U.S. women's thing, and then we've got the gymnastics thing with the Nasser finally getting in trouble, and then like you've got all this stuff, and it was like, oh yeah, we're building a lot of momentum here. And then you had Kobe and Gigi who were bringing so much attention to the WNBA and women's basketball, and then all of a sudden it was like, okay, Kobe's gone. Now we've got this coronavirus, so everything's at a halt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like even Sabrina was just like one of those. Just watching her play was like, it just brought so much to women's basketball, and now we don't even get to watch her play anymore. So
yeah,
it was just like a huge momentum stopper. But she's right. Like we're not this. Like all of the bullshit aside, like competition, we're not competition to each other. We need to all work together and collaborate and somehow figure out a way to break through all the bullshit.
Yeah, no, I agree. And hearing Sabrina, it's kind of a heartbreaker because she does say, my season being cut the way that it was cut is heartbreaking, and
she's
all
devastated.
Yeah, she's absolutely devastated. I mean, how can you not be having the season that you had and the momentum and also like there must be a lot of things that are left unsaid, unproven, undone, like they'll never be complete. I think the fact that Kobe and Gigi and the tragedy that happened in that helicopter also gave a lot of, oh, I'm not gonna be able to do it for him, or I'm not gonna be able, there's just a lot I think of that happened, and she was talking about that during this event, which was just a heartbreaker. And then Katie Sowers, I thought, brought up a really great point as well. She was saying, I would wish that we would, stop with all this gender, about like you go into stores and you're like, here's the women's section, here's the girls section, or here's the boys section.
Yeah.
Like, let's just stop all of that and just look at each other and check ourselves when we're doing this to change the narrative.
Yep.
And try to be more inclusive because, we're trying to find what each other's passions are. And that doesn't really have to revolve around the gender part of who we are, if that's our passion.
Right.
So that was so powerful. It was so powerful,
Yeah.
And then I think it was Katie Ledecky who talked about, they asked about advice for young athletes, and she mentioned that, she doesn't want to be considered a hero. She wants to look at the heroes now in the healthcare and the front lines, the doctors, the grocery clerks. She wants people to say, like, those are the real heroes. She doesn't want to be a hero. Athletes shouldn't have to be the heroes. There are real heroes out there that are putting themselves on the front line. It was remarkable. It was so powerful. The power, the energy.
Yep.
I was living for it on Saturday.
Obviously, some people weren't living for that power.
There, you always have a few assholes in the mix. Like, that was going to come about. I mean,
it's just so, it's like, why even try to spoil milk on it? Like, just don't watch it if it's not for you. Get out of here.
Right. Take more energy to talk shit than just to ignore.
And these women could fuck you guys up on the field, on the court, any fucking day. So you want to talk shit about the women's sports? Like, it was sports, bro.
It was pretty disheartening. I just saw those comments on the stream on desktop where it was like, the only women's sport I watch is Jello wrestling, or wine. We want to get paid and stuff like that. You're just like, you fucking with your troll name and your troll ways. And I just wish, like, there are a lot of things I think that we all look at and say, this is how I would have done it if it was me. Okay, so I have those things that I think about when I see this, and it's like there needs to be a community management. This is like my social hat, my social hat that comes on. Some sort of community management, I think, in all of tech, because I think tech in general and in social media, we tend to be like, well, if you don't say anything, we just let them, be who they are. It's like, no, you need to take a point of view when it's something that has a certain energy, and especially if it's being, in my opinion, if it was being targeted to young girls, young athletes, that are a lot of the questions that were in video came from young, like 6-7-year-old girls, little girls. And just like you would put a rating, like the PG, a G, and R to a movie, I think when you're trying to have this conversation that's definitely targeted to a youth market, then there should be some sort of, like, you take the comments down, or you community management those type of comments, because that's the kind of shit that it is true. That's a reality. That stuff happens in the world. We're all witness to that shit happening to us, to that happening to others. But it's like, if you can do that one time where you're just like, I'm turning the comments off, or I'm going to go in community management. That was my one thing where I'm like, man, what a missed opportunity to take, a stance and say, you know what? Not fucking today, fucker. Not fucking today. But it is what it is. Hindsight's 2020. Overall, I think the panel was just chef's kiss. Like, I couldn't think of a better thing to do on a Saturday.
It was so good. And yeah, I was a vigilante on Yahoo.com. I went in and I reported every little dick face.
I was on social, so I wasn't dealing with the app stuff, but I was on Facebook and Twitter, and believe me, it really, as a social, I know there's a lot of internet jokes about people who run social media accounts are interns or whatever, which is not the case whatsoever. And that joke it's funny once, and then it gets a little bit like, well, that's really fucking disrespectful. Like, that's my full-time job, and it's literally a full-time job. Like, you have to do it 24/7 nonstop. And anytime we post anything about women in sports, it's just constant with that garbage, and it really does mess you up mentally, saying that trash, because you have like all this hope. Like, on my personal one, nothing happens, I've had the occasional stick to sport or get back in the kitchen or whatever,
right,
but that's every once in a while. But when you post, just especially during the World Cup, Women's World Cup, anything we posted was just, they just rolled in.
Yeah, but they fucking rocked it.
Oh, yeah.
And
but
soccer
all this, the sexist comments that we would get on anything we post, it really does mess with a social media manager's mental health. Especially a woman seeing that stuff, right? Yeah. So I'm not afraid to clap back from the Yahoo Sports handle on people like that. Sometimes I'll write stuff out and I'm like,
right.
Okay, you got it out, but delete it. That's a little bit too much coming from a brand. But there are times when I'm like, you know what? Fuck this. Fuck you. You're in your mom's basement. You're hiding behind a keyboard because you would never say this to any of their fucking faces.
Yep.
Because you don't have the balls to do it. So, no, we're going to say something today.
Yeah.
But,
great follow-up. You get all those mean tweets, you figure out pictures of these assholes, and you have all the women on that panel read their mean tweets and then plop their ugly photo and username. How awesome would that be?
Well, you know what, though, at the same time, it's like they crave for the attention, right? Because they're, to your point, they're in a fucking basement with a fake name. They have no skill to be able to come out, and they would never say that to your face. They would never go to these athletes and say it to their face. So they hide behind these personas. And the best thing for them is to get mentions and to get, people to actually give a shit about it. And you're just like, you don't want to give them that satisfaction. At the same time, you're like, how do we police this? There's just no way.
Yeah.
I guess I have faith that the rest of the collective would come at them, men and women, be like, you're a turd.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is, you have to pick your battles, right? You're not going to go after every single one, or you could be there all day for the rest of your life.
That's true.
But So you have to pick your battles. But like for me, it's one of those things like silence is a lot louder than saying something sometimes. Yeah. So if I feel like something is happening that I'm not, that I oppose or whatever, then, you know, sitting back and not doing anything about it is basically just letting it, you're okaying it, right?
Yeah,
so, like, you're not going to go after every single one, but there are sometimes, you know, and you see it on Twitter all the time. Why are you feeding the trolls? Why are you feeding the trolls? And it's like, well, because sometimes you just got to fucking get in there and you got to attack them. Right. Because you know what? It's not going to stop, but it makes me feel a little bit better today knowing that I stood up to this asshole sitting in his mom's basement. Yeah. So that's why you feed the trolls occasionally.
I just think Yahoo would have a great editorial franchise if you got those trolls, especially with the female athletes, and then made them compete with them one-on-one, but then act like, oh, you want a free trip to LA and scold her.
Oh, I've thought about that idea. I've thought about that idea plenty
I'll fund that shit. We'll Kickstarter it.
Let's do it.
I'll get someone in marketing to fund it. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
I would watch that. I would. Ooh,
everyone would watch that.
I'll produce it.
Oh yeah. Everyone's like, you know what? I'll get the. I will come at the Rona for this shit.
Come at the Rona.
We'll do 6 feet. You know, from masks, full mask, gloves, a whole suit, so I can come and see these fools.
Most of these guys you don't want to be closer to 6 feet from, anyways.
True, right? Nasty asses.
Well, I mean, we wouldn't be, you know, real if we didn't bring up that there is that among the greatness that it was, but it wasn't what defined it. It definitely what defined it was these women having this conversation, and I thought it was great. And so you can see, is there a replay, or are people able to see a replay of the event?
It's pinned to the top of Yahoo Sports Twitter, and you can watch it.
Okay, so we'll make sure we put that in the notes.
Share that out.
It's really great. The only thing I will say too that I was sad about was that we never saw Carrie Champion's dog Coco. We heard
all about Coco, but no.
We never saw the dog. I wouldn't mind seeing the dog, and I'd also like Chanae's guacamole recipe because I heard
guac and chips.
Guac and chips, and I would like that recipe.
Man, it's quarantine life.
True.
So that was a great event. Next up, the WNBA draft is Friday on ESPN.
Yes, not two. ESPN.
No, it's on the actual channel. I believe it's going to be 2 hours long.
Woo!
It's going to be like,
wow.
I think it's like 2 hours long. And then after the draft, they're going to be showing Game 5 of the championship season. The last championship is the what was it? The Washington
Mystics and
the team that lost.
Connecticut, right?
Yes, the Sun. So they're gonna be playing Game 5 over again, which is nice. So it'll be a nice big WNBA on Friday.
Party.
So today I actually sat in a conference call, the 2020 WNBA pre-draft media conference call, and on that call there were let's see, I've closed my window here, but I wanted to just let y'all know who was on the call. Well, let's see. Sorry, where did my tabs? Okay. Rebecca Lobo and Holly Rowe were on the call, and I believe they're going to be doing they're actually going to be the hosts. So they're the ESPN WNBA analysts, but they're also going to be hosting the show. And then as far as, that was like the first part of the call. It was a long call. No joke. It was a long call. And then the last half, it was WNBA head coaches Greg Bibb of the Dallas Wings, Sandy Brondello of the Phoenix Mercury, Walt Hopkins of the New York Liberty, and Cheryl Reeve of the Minnesota Lynx. One of the things that so I'm just going to run through some highlights, but Walt Hopkins said that Tina Charles is still with the Liberty, because we haven't heard, there's a lot of stuff that happened during free agency. So no one like has said if she was going to be there or not, but he said on this call that she was with the Liberty, whatever that means, but that's what they're saying. And then some other highlights. So Sabrina Ionescu, who, as we know, is going to be the first draft pick. I mean, obviously, New York lib. She's going to be a lib.
Right. She's going to be a lib.
She's going to be. I mean, unless they nix it.
Oh.
She's going to be a lib.
They might.
Wait, does Dolan own the Liberty?
What was that, Karen?
Does Dolan own the Liberty?
No, he got out of it.
God. Well, they're fine then.
Okay, they're good. I wonder how he's doing with the Rona.
I don't know.
Oh, with the Rona, I know. There's no update.
Dolan?
Yeah, we haven't got any Rona updates about him. Woo!
Wait, did he get it?
Yeah. Tested positive.
He had the Rona?
Yeah.
Oh my God. What if he's being fucking Weekend at Bernie's drowned?
Oh, shit.
Maybe.
We haven't heard from him.
We haven't heard.
Yeah, last time was the 28th of March.
Yeah.
But the sucky thing is little to no symptoms.
Wow.
The sucky thing. We're dicks.
I'm just waiting on Karma to get her job done.
We didn't fucking wish it on him. He already had it. Goddamn high five.
So you're just wishing worse symptoms on it.
Look, we need hope for the next.
At least the diarrhea symptom.
Yeah, I just want his butthole to fall off.
2 weeks of diarrhea. That's all I ask.
Oh man. Someone should tell him the only cure is to sell the Knicks. Maybe they need to do that when he's having like high fever.
Yes.
They should
stuff while he's delusional.
Just get him when he's all delusional. Have him just sign.
Somebody, anybody.
Weekend at Bernie's his arm into a signature.
Yeah, you think Steven would do it? Put on some PPE and go out there and try to.
He'd be a fucking hero if he did.
Yes.
Definitely a hero. So she's definitely going to be a lib. So one of the questions that they asked was, what do you think Sabrina in the spotlight of New York? Rebecca had a really great answer. She said that Sabrina is going to fit in perfect with New York, and that the New York fan base is a little bit different because, they'll stop you on the street and talk about basketball, and there's just this like hyper awareness of sports and sports culture, and that Sabrina will just be a perfect culture fit on and off the court. She really lives and craves for those pressure moments, which, New York is a high fucking stress culture in general. And I think in sports, they are like super, super, super like culture of sports. I lived there, 8 years? I mean, anywhere, anytime on the streets, you could like drop a pin and be like talking about Yankees or talking about the Knicks. It's always very hyper focused on that. So that intensity we see can either break a player or make a player. Not a lot of players can like go into that grind. You have very few like Mariano Rivera, Derek Jeter. From the Knicks, you see like a lot of those players. They just just kind of fizzle out. They can't deal with it. But she has that crave for high pressure moments. So they felt, Rebecca Lobo felt she's going to be a great fit. And Holly Rowe mentioned that there's about 22,000 Romanians in New York, and Sabrina is a first generation.
Oh.
So that population will also.
I didn't know that.
There's 22,000 fans right there.
I know, built-in fan base. So the other question around Sabrina was what makes her different, and Rebecca Lobo just mentioned again her competitive fire and her will to win, and she compared her to Diana Taurasi and Sue Bird when it comes to being a standout. And she's Rebecca was asked about between Oregon and I think South Carolina who would win in the NCAA finals, and she couldn't pick a winner. I would have gone.
I wish we could have gotten that game.
I know, couldn't have gotten the game.
I know. God, so it's going to be the lost season. Definitely.
So sad.
A lot of lost.
They're gonna have to do like a reunion, 5 years, 10 years, and just play games. Everybody from each team, South Carolina and Oregon.
Well, they better stay fresh.
I would go to that. And then they also were, there was tons of great questions from all different news outlets, but I would just like pick some like highlights. Like one of the questions was what's the difference between the draft this year than last year? And obviously, Sabrina does add something extra to this draft, not to take away from players from last year, but she's just that like, when Candace Parker entered the draft, that feel, that like just something magic that's going on with her coming into this particular draft. Actually, and what I thought was really interesting is that not only is that there's Sabrina in this draft, but the free agency has really left a lot of the teams stacked. So if they feel like they're fully formed, a lot of these teams are already kind of formalized. They've got who they needed. That's going to leave a lot less opportunity for players that are undrafted to come into the training camps. So that's like a really interesting position for WNBA, because normally, you have a lot of opportunity. You got these kids, these young women that are undrafted, and they can go to the training camps. That's not going to be the case in this time. So it's a very unique draft. And then a surprise pick who I'm really like want to dive deeper into. Holly Rowe mentioned her, was Bella Alari. So she played, I think, in Princeton. So she played in the Ivy League. So she didn't get as much attention or televised games on a national scale. But she's someone that's definitely going to be a first round pick. She'll be in the first draft. And what's interesting about her is I was doing a little more research, and she's doing a dissertation on some Broadway show. She's like studied she studied the history of music, and for her dissertation she's doing this paper on Broadway, and the particular show, which you can find it somewhere. I don't have it up, but I thought that was really interesting. And I think that she's going to be one of those, like a Ja Morant, where it's kind of like the spotlight is definitely on Sabrina, but she's going to have some stuff, under the radar that's really going to like push her to a level that you may, she's going to be one of those that you're just like, oh, I didn't realize like that's happening on that way. So those are some things that came out of that conference, and I actually recorded it very like MacGyver style with one phone attached to the other phone while I was playing. So I have some transcripts that I could probably get out and get a little more information. But I'm excited for this draft. I'm excited, and they're excited, because even Holly was like, fuck, we're going to get like 2 hours on the main ESPN channel to talk about WNBA.
Yeah. What?
That's fucking massive. So I think it's going to be great. So that was that. The other thing I think we need to talk about is the NBA Force event. Okay, no lie, I did turn on the TV. I did put the channel on, and I couldn't take more than like 2 minutes.
I waited for highlights. Twitter, what happened?
I waited until the first couple shots, and I was like, no. First of all, it was shot on dial-up internet, apparently, or a potato. You pick one. It was either old AOL or a potato.
Potato.
Or it was LeBron's little flip phone from back in the day. on top of just horse being the most boring fucking game on earth to watch, even in person, Trae Young decides to start off the game with a fucking free throw, which is the most boring shot.
You're supposed to knock him out first, and then they can't do anything but try to match it. Come on, the strategy to horse.
I mean, everything was just so fucking lame. And then you've got, like, some dude who has, like, he's, like, trying to interview them, and he has the 3M fucking stick-em hooks on the back of his wall with holding jerseys on hangers, where he's like, oh, I gotta make my makeshift home studio. Like,
gross.
It's everything about this was just so bad. On top of the fact that you have shitty-ass Mike Conley, who's been paid so much money that he has an indoor fucking 24-hour
while
fitness.
everyone else is outside freezing.
Yeah, well, Tamika Catchings, who has so many accolades, is wearing a fucking coat and a hat. She looks like the fucking wet bandit from Home Alone. Like, what the fuck?
No,
we have more rounds of this shit. This is just, I don't miss sports enough to watch this garbage shot on a fucking potato. Sorry.
Yeah. And, you know,
I'm out.
I'm sorry, but I also have to say that anybody that was on Twitter trying to make this an actual thing, that actually was like, oh, look at this. Look at no. I'm going to say no. I'm going to say na, because there is no fucking way that you are legitimately watching this and think that it's good. Like, there's no way. And you are so thirsty. Like, just no. Like, we have said this since the beginning of the virus. Everybody just relax. You stop. Just pump the fucking brakes and let's all collectively use our energy to put something forth better in the future than trying to come up. You know, no. I understand that the NBA is trying to do something, but they don't need to stop. Like, this one was rock bottom.
This ain't it, Chief.
Yeah.
This ain't it.
Yeah, and there's so many players. Why can't we do deep dives into their stories and learn about them as, like,
you know,
journalism?
P. Diddy had a benefit on IG Live for to raise money to get healthcare workers the supplies that they need. He raised like over $3 million. On IG Live. I would have rather seen an IG Live. You know, and I know I complain because those fucking IG Lives are blowing up my phone like every 5 seconds.
Oh yeah,
like on the hour, there's 10 IG Lives going on every hour on the hour. I get it. But this was on the main channel.
It was so bad. I could not change the channel quick enough.
Yeah.
It was just like, let's just like sit down. Can we all just like stop forcing sports on us? Just let's sit down and contemplate the moment that we're in and what we have and be grateful for whatever and not put fucking horse on TV ever again. I don't give a shit that there's 2 more rounds left.
No.
End it, ESPN. Just end it. That was the most atrocious thing I've ever watched on fucking TV. And Donald Trump's ass is on there every goddamn day.
Oh my God, that's a lot. That's a comparison.
Woo!
Oh man, that is a read. That is a full read.
Red.
But Karen, you did say the one silver lining. You brought this up. We were talking about it earlier.
And it's definitely evident with Catchings and Conley's setups. Like, what was this? I came across a tweet by Erica, who's a producer at EA Sports. And she just, tweeted a conversation between her and her husband. She was like, my husband, why does Allie Quigley, oh, sorry, wrong comparison, but he was similar. Why does Allie Quigley have such a shitty court? And then, of course, she's like, let me launch into a dissertation about the gender wage gap and how NBA players should make more money. But, of course, she had to mute her replies because, as we can all imagine, a lot of guys got in their huff about, of course, trying to say, why are you trying to make as much money as, like, LeBron? No one's asking to make money like LeBron. I mean, yes, but we know that's not going to happen.
No.
It's all about just
and what they're worth.
Yeah, what they're worth. The actual NBA investing, sponsorships, all that stuff, everything that, you know, the current commissioner is doing, that's the stuff we should have been doing years ago.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact, you know, even when Emalee was on, she said when the girls league, baseball league came on, more people attended that.
Yeah.
Hello.
I just don't understand, like, you know, it comes to a point too where if you keep like doubling down on the same argument, it doesn't mean that you're right.
Oh yeah.
You know,
this ain't Rona. Just because you're exposed several times doesn't make it happen.
Yeah. It doesn't, you know, you're not right because you keep saying that. It doesn't make any sense anymore that when you're saying that. It's like stupid. Yeah. It's like when fucking that bitch in the White House keeps saying, oh, well, Obama's administration. And you're like, okay, bitch, you know what? That is so far gone. That's no longer relevant. And by you continue to say it doesn't make.
You've been in office for 4 years, dumbass.
Yes.
Right. But nothing's his fault. Come on. You guys know that.
Well, that's, you know, sociopath.
These people that keep saying the same thing about the Page thing, they're bitches just like he is. So
I think Karen, you retweeted a guy last night who quote tweeted a picture of Mike Conley and Tamika catching.
Yeah.
And somebody, it was like a woman said, put the pictures next to each other, and she goes, this seems slightly unfair. And Tamika Catching's outside freezing her ass off, and Mike Conley like by the fire, just like dribbling around in his air conditioned gym. And a guy quote tweeted it, and he said, with all the accolades for
Tamika.
each of them, and it was like, yeah, he goes, Tamika Catching, basketball Hall of Famer, WNBA champion, 2011 WNBA MVP, 10-time WNBA All-Star, 4-time Olympic gold medalist, $300,000 net worth. Mike Conley, 2013 All-NBA second team, $32 million net worth, and that was it.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. That's all he has.
Wow. I mean, that kind of says it all. And if people that say about this that you want to get paid LeBron money, if those people keep saying that same thing and they can't see with their eyes using logic that it doesn't seem fair that someone with the accolades and career and history is making a fraction of somebody who just has a few accolades and one accolade. And also is in like this highly, you know, this gym while she's outside in like a jacket.
Yeah.
I don't know. If you still think that's fair, okay. I don't know. This is not a conversation that we can have with them.
For sure. If anything, like Mike Conley's salary is inflated. 2013, bro, it's 2020.
That's terrible.
You're like you're retire.
I like this kid though. This guy's name is Jack Bloomfield. I mean, he's got like 140 followers on Twitter, but so somebody underneath him goes, how many WNBA games did you watch last year? And he goes, I probably watched around 10 Mystics games during my free time, and I went to an LA Sparks game when I was in town. One of the best games I've been to. And then
exactly.
So he's like, fucking come at me, man. I got receipts.
Yeah.
Little Jack Bloomfield.
Well, fuck,
I'll follow you.
I didn't go to any. I mean, I couldn't afford to go to any Laker games. Does that make me not a Laker?
Oh, yeah, exactly, right?
I can't like NBA. I can't like Lakers because I wasn't at every game. And
I don't go to games?
Yeah, and I couldn't sit at home and watch every single, like, game on TV. Why? How is that, like, mean that you're into something? how many Wimbledon games do you actually watch?
Right.
Probably just watch Lois Serena. You know, does that
But
mean?
not only that, but like facts are facts. It doesn't fucking matter if I've watched 8 million horse races or Wimbledon matches or whatever. Like, if I'm bringing the facts, what fucking difference does it make?
Doesn't make
it's
any.
a fact. Like she clearly has done more in her career than he has.
Yeah.
He's getting paid and she's not. That's a fucking fact. I don't have to be a fan. I don't have to be a super fan. I don't have to watch 1 second of NBA or WNBA. A quick Google search will give you that shit.
If you literally do not like sports at all and you Googled that, you'd be like, that doesn't seem fair.
Yep.
Right.
You know, if I just
well, then you've got how many TV how much revenue do they bring in? Yada yada yada. Oh, shut up. How much money do they put into the NBA compared to the WNBA?
Exactly.
How much are they investing? How much are they marketing?
Yeah. But please, how much fucking money is Mike Connolly bringing into the NBA that he deserves?
Like, yeah,
right.
Buying a ticket to
I have
watch
a feeling
play.
he's putting shit into the NBA. If anything, he's a drain on the NBA because of all his fucking injuries and the fact that he hasn't won a championship.
Regrets having him on fantasy.
Right.
So, you know, you want to talk about someone who isn't bringing anything to the game? I'm sorry, Mike Connolly, that you have to be this one in this period of time. But if you want to do apples to apples, let's look at it. You're not bringing anything either. So why are you getting paid all this money?
Exactly.
That's true.
It's just, you know, let's just call it the way it is. But Karen, to your point, I do think that maybe that's the conversation that should be had with this stupid horse game. Shit.
Yeah, especially if Allie takes it. I mean, she upsets CP3. Come on.
Yeah. I think it's a stupid game, but I'm glad that these conversations are happening.
Yeah.
And, you know.
You know what's crazy? There's an article I read that mentioned that Giannis said he couldn't participate because he doesn't have a court or a hoop. Giannis.
Okay.
I think they could find him one.
At home.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Maybe he lives in an apartment.
You know what? Fuck him too. I'm not going to be like, woe is Giannis.
Yeah.
Apartment.
Oh no, I cannot.
Run to fucking Walmart and buy a cheap ass hoop, man. Like, come on.
Seriously, no.
You're making a hell of a lot more than I am, and you have space for a goddamn hoop. I don't even have a backyard. I gotta go out on my stoop for some fucking fresh air every once in a while.
I gotta just open the door, and I bought a net from Amazon.
Seriously, no. I'm sorry. That's a stupid excuse. You don't want to do it.
I know.
Tell me I don't.
Can you blame him though? I wouldn't want to do it. I'd be pulling out every.
No, I bet Giannis was lying. He's got a full court, but he just was like, "Oh, I don't have one."
Basketball? What's basketball?
Yeah, exactly. All of a sudden, he's like boo-boo from like, from the middle of the country somewhere. I go basketball, please.
Basketball? What is basketball?
The basketball, please give me a break. He's got like 2 other brothers that play basketball. They don't have a court.
Wait, aren't there 5 of them?
Maybe.
Yeah, girl. They're a whole team. They're a whole Jackson 5 band.
A whole lot of Koopas.
That family plaque, you know, the ones where everyone get their last names.
And
it doesn't fit the
frame. Girl, please. You know he doesn't have to court my ass. Well, horse is stupid. So let's see. Anything else on this topic before we move on? We have a couple more things.
No more airtime.
Don't do it again.
Don't do it again. That is the gist of this. Don't do it.
It should just be called horse shit.
Okay, so moving on. Shaq has a reality show. I watched it. I liked it. It's funny. Check it out. It's on
I need
TNT.
to get my TNT login.
Pretty good. You know, here's the thing with Shaq. Like, I find it really interesting that he calls himself a Renaissance man. So you got that. But for reals, like, he's like invested in a lot of companies, and he decided he wanted to be a fucking DJ. Like, who?
DJ Diesel?
Yeah, he's a DJ, and they talk about like his first set, and they're like, okay, so he'd be able to go past an hour. Like, his sets, you know, these sets have to be really long when you do the DJ thing. And it's also interesting because they do talk about his being in shape. You know, he had to go back to the gym. And so I think there is, I mean, I only saw the first couple episodes, but there's definitely like some deeper look into, like, also the fact that, you know, he's raised by a single mom. They featured the shoe store where he gets his shoes, and apparently when he couldn't afford shoes, and the man the man gave him shoes, and so now Jack will go in there and spend over $6,000
just for
with him, you know. So
must be nice to have that kind of dough.
He talks about like how this man gave him a chance. You know, it was like, hey, you know what, just I will help you. I know you can't pay for the shoes. And so he gives back to those that, you know, paid it forward in a way. So it's interesting to see that. So yeah, it's not all goofy, although for the most part it is, but it's just interesting to see, like, I think we talked to Kia, the career coach in episodes back about how athletes nowadays, like, how are they going to transition when they can no longer play, you know, and as we see from these IG lives, a lot of these people can't necessarily transition very easily into being entertainers. They're just like, baby, stop, get off of the
boo-boo, figure it out.
Boo-boo. You need to not. You're not it. I'm just going to tell you right now.
Not
it. So it's interesting, you know, how you're going to reshape yourself out of this, from this athletic field to then being, are you going to be an entertainer? Are you going to be a producer? And he has a shit ton of kids, so all of them are going to, you know, he has to pay for them. So,
did you see the video that one of his sons, Sharif, posted? I don't know if it's an old one or if it's recent or whatever, but he posted a TikTok or something on Shaq's boat, and he's like, my dad bought a boat and he named it Free Throw, so it because it wouldn't sink.
So good.
That's funny. That's funny. You know,
right?
Him and his family on TikTok are pretty funny. They have some good stuff going on. So, anyways, if you're interested, Shaq Life, check it out. TNT.
I love Shaq.
You need something to watch. They're very quick, half-hour shows, so go check it out. Let's see. The Sundays, the MG docu-series on I believe it's on ESPN. And I think it's like 10 parts, right? It's like
10-part series, but it's going to be 2 episodes per week, so it's only for 5 weeks.
Okay, well, it's called The Last Dance. I believe that's what Phil Jackson called the playbook or whatever. It's called Last Dance. So that's where that comes from. So that'll be interesting. And we have people that want to also come on to the podcast and talk about it. So maybe we'll do like a whole little series.
Yeah,
let's do it.
Let's do it. But yeah, I mean, there were some other things. I read somewhere where Shaq wanted to pay $10,000 to like some new guy on the Lakers to get in a fight with Kobe. I read that really quickly. I didn't see the whole thing. But I saw like he wanted to pay $10,000 to see if we could $10K to fight Kobe.
That's some like Nancy Kerrigan type shit, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like go bust him up.
Yeah. Because also
the
player was Isaiah Ryder, and he's like straight up was like, I'm 2 games or 2 practices in, and Shaq is like, I'm gonna give you $10,000 in dollar bills if you go and fight Kobe in practice.
Why? To use it for the strip club later? Oh my God.
So So he told
man.
this in the All the Smoke episode with Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson. So that's actually kind of funny. It's kind of like some tea was spilled with that. So Shaq always, you know, in it to win it. But that's it. That's it for the updates on this. Karen, you have a timeout.
I mean, like I said, like Kendall said, we don't need to give these fucking trolls any more airtime, but we already roasted their ass earlier, so that was my quick timeout.
Basically, timeout to trolls. Let's put it that way.
My timeout is I got a timeout for you
Trolls
guys.
on their couch.
Kendall has a timeout.
Timeout. Not to bring the mood down, but Carl Anthony Towns' mom passed away from coronavirus.
Shoot.
Yeah.
So here's your timeout. Take this shit seriously. Wash your hands.
Yes.
Use your Purell or antibacterial, whatever, and stay inside, because whatever the bozo in chief is telling you and telling us, he's out for himself. Take care of you. Take care of your friends. Take care of your neighbors.
Yes.
Stay inside, because this shit is actually very, very serious.
Super real.
Very real. And I know that his mom is obviously not, you know, some famous person or whatever, like, isn't the first person to pass from this, but it's still really sad and really sucks. So stay inside.
Yeah, I second that.
Good one, Kay.
Stay inside, wash your hands, social distancing. You know what's right. Don't act like you don't know what's right.
And how can you even go out there and be not nervous, man? Just trying to go grocery shopping. I see a line of 10 people. I'm done. I'll starve.
That's serious.
Yeah.
It's going to take a while.
Wear a mask.
Yeah.
Take short walks. And if you got out, stay away from people.
I honestly think that what is not registering is this is a long haul situation, and it's not going to be a short-term fix. So let's
waves too.
That, you know,
no Band-Aid for this. We just gotta go through it.
We gotta get through it. It's the only way forward is through it. So let's come through together.
But the thing is we have to realize that we all have the easy part of all of this just by staying inside and watching movies and playing games and doing whatever, drinking.
In the hospitals.
Like, that's the easy part. Like, stop whining and complaining. Everything will be back to normal once everybody starts doing what they're told to do.
True.
And then you can be at brunch and bars and games and whatever. But this is the easy part. There are a lot of people out there that have it way worse.
Yeah.
Yep, true.
It will be all the much sweeter when we can go back to a life of being with our friends and family and enjoying the events that we're used to, especially sports being one of them. Well, guys, that's it. That's it. We are at the end of the episode. We want to thank Emalee again, Emalee Nelson. She is on our Instagram. She has Instagram. She has Twitter. I will put her links for her website, what have you, so you can check out, and hopefully she'll come back and tell us more about her dissertation. As always, make sure you subscribe and review us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and follow us and DM us on our social handles, Twitter and Instagram at The Hoops Talking. We will keep doing these episodes. We're finding a lot of solace it being together on Zoom and continuing this habit of the podcast. So please make sure you reach out to us. We're here and we want to hear from you. So other than that, Karen, I guess the only thing is how we want to keep it.
Sweaty
and steady. Woo.